Okay, mixed weather with the weather today. It's actually cloudy in some spots, sunny in others, and drizzling actually in certain spots. I have some new PL filters to test out for the drone today. It should make it better for things like water shots and all that. And with that in mind, what did I read today? How about this one with tensions around the world of a drone getting shot down, and maybe this will erupt things, for example, further war in certain places. This one says conflicting accounts emerge after UN peacekeepers shoot down Israeli drone. It says the Israeli army and the United Nations peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon said peacekeepers shot down an Israeli drone over the weekend, but gave conflicting statements about the circumstances. The incident took place as Israeli strikes over Lebanon intensify amidst scrambles to hold a tense ceasefire that ended Israel's war with Hezbollah last November. And it says Israeli Arabic military spokesperson Avichai Adre said Monday that while the drone was near peacekeeping forces from UNIFIL in the southeastern border town of Kfar Kila, it was conducting routine information gathering and reconnaissance activity and did not fire at the peacekeeping troops. After the drone was shot down, Defense Army forces threw a hand grenade at the area where the drone was down. But there's a conflicting statements because it says UNIFIL, however, in a statement Sunday said an Israeli drone had flown over a UNIFIL patrol in an aggressive manner and that peacekeepers applied necessary defensive countermeasures to neutralize it. It said that shortly after that, an Israeli drone dropped a grenade near the peacekeeping mission and an Israeli tank fired toward them. No peacekeepers were wounded, so who knows who's telling the truth in that regards anyways. That's a pretty substantial difference in terms of the stories and all that. Although that is kind of an interesting point where it indicates before it was just doing reconnaissance, but then they implied, like the other side, that it was firing grenades and so forth, because a lot of those drones that people are using, that's being reported anyways, they're either for intel purposes or they're used as weapons, for example. So this one sounded like it could do both. But with things like drones and weaponized ones, how about this one in terms of using AI in order to run an army of sort? And this one kind of indicates how China could be extremely advanced in that regards. This one here says robot dogs and AI drone swarms, how China could use DeepSeek for an era of war. That's kind of interesting because there was a lot of buzz before about people using DeepSeek as an AI where they say it was growing so fast, I guess because of its open source nature in general. It says China's state-owned defense giant Norinco in February unveiled a military vehicle capable of autonomously conducting combat support operations at 50 kilometers per hour. It was powered by DeepSeek, the company whose artificial intelligence model is the pride of China's tech sector. The Norinco P-60's release was touted by Communist Party officials in a press statement as an early showcase of how Beijing is using DeepSeek and AI to catch up in its arms races with the United States at a time when leaders in both countries have urged their militaries to prepare for conflict. Although it does say they're not exactly sure 100%, I suppose, how they're using it exactly, but at the same time, they're saying it's supposed to be a way for them to push things like autonomous target recognition and real-time battlefield decision support in a way that mirrors US efforts. I can imagine this easily in the future in terms of AI automation, building the drones, having them go wherever autonomously and all that. The problem will be like what you see in the movies, where you'll be able to stop it if something goes wrong. I just think from my experience so far and using things like AI for the average individual, it's useful in terms of things like crunching data and compiling, I guess, information. And that could actually help a lot of people actually in terms of finding out whether or not something's real, whether it's not. And I think one good example actually recently, which was kind of funny, which I thought you guys find entertaining, is there was actually someone who doubted that I actually walked as much as I do. Or remember that day when I walked, for example, 125,000 steps? Like the person was in complete denial, it seems like, in terms of whether or not it's actually possible. So it's kind of a funny story here. It relates to the game Pokémon Go. As you guys may know, you basically walk around in real life catching Pokemon and so forth. And recently in this game, they updated the levels so people started to go out and play more. And in order to level up for some of the levels, you're required to travel like a certain amount of distance. Like in this case, you can see here, it says travel about 200 kilometers. So as you can imagine, a game like this, there's a lot of people that are competitive. They want to be the quote first, I guess, for bragging rights and so forth. But the fact that some people blew by this so quickly, a lot of people are automatically saying, for example, cheater, impossible like to go 200 kilometers, let's just say in 2 days. And here was a good example where there was a person who posted this here at first saying here, PSA, if anyone has walked over 200 kilometers already, they are 100% for sure doing it illegitimate. 200K is no joke. And he says the most I've ever walked in a Go Fest week, which is like their big festival event, it says is 161 kilometers where I play every day for 10 to 14 hours. And so he posts his screenshot here to kind of verify that. So you can see, as it says, he walked about like what, 82,390 steps. And it says the distance he walked is 161 kilometers. Now I'll get back to that, but in general, I was just reading that and saying, well, it's not impossible if you really wanted to walk 200 kilometers, let's just say in a day or 2 days anyways, like in 48 hours. And to basically prove my point, I at first just posted him my screenshot of my Google Fit. Remember that day when I walked 125,000 steps? So that should show, for example, if you were actually just focused on nothing but walking, not, for example, like what I was doing, camera testing and all that, you theoretically could. But despite this guy was in complete denial, it seems like saying, for example, 93 kilometers in a day is highly unlikely legit. And so I actually posted my video in terms of the one, if you guys remember, where I actually walked for that long. It has all the data, the time-lapse footage and so forth. I mean, you can't fake that. And sure enough, I didn't get like a response or anything like that. But this was a great example of how I thought on how you can use AI for very basic stuff like this for verification. For example, asking, hey, is this possible? Like for how much this guy walked and so forth, or vice versa for the guy's own stats that he posted, is that possible? And that's the interesting thing, because if you remember here, he was saying he walked for this long and for that amount of distance, and that actually doesn't make sense. So I actually ran it through like an AI to see what it thinks, because I don't want to go through like all the math calculations and so forth, whereas this thing could do it like in a couple of seconds. So first, the AI basically tries to assess it, saying Billy's screenshot boasts an impressive 161.5 kilometers walked over a week, paired with 82,920 steps, 62 eggs and so forth. That's basically like in the game. But the AI actually realizes, hey, something is wrong. It says, but dig deeper and the math tells a different tale. Dividing those steps into the distance yields an implied stride length of about 1.95 meters per step, roughly the length of a park bench, or what you'd need if you were striding like a 7-foot NBA center on stilts. For context, the average adult stride during a brisk walk hovers around 0.7 to 0.8 meters. Anything north of 1.2 meters starts whispering vehicle assist or GPS generosity. And it says Pokémon Go's Adventure Sync via Google Fit prioritizes track travel distance over pure pedometer steps, often inflating total with curvy routes, identical movement, or, as Billy later revealed in his own video, e-bike pedaling. And for the AI's, I guess, extra comment, it says lighthearted jab time. Billy, if your legs were that long, you'd have lapped the Go Fest crowd without breaking a sweat or a chain. And then this AI makes a comment because he tried to claim, for example, my walk was not legitimate. It says, the irony, the same guy who dubbed 93 kilometers, quote, highly unlikely, was out there quietly pedaling his way to virtual glory, turning what could have been a humble pie moment into a masterclass in selective skepticism. I mean, that is true too when you think about it. How did he go so much further distance-wise, walking way less steps than I did? That should automatically ring a bell, correct? It's like, hey, something's wrong. So coming back to this AI and how it interprets, for example, my information, it says here, Alan's Google Fit one-day dash data that stands tall. So it seemed like it was actually saying, hey, this seems legit. Now, why is that the case? Contrast that with Alan's screenshot, 125,078 steps, 93.64 kilometers, 1,113 move minutes, and 4,301 calories burned in what appears to be a single day's effort. No gamified eggs or medals, just raw, relentless progress on a route that screams Vancouver Urban Explorer. And it says flats to gentle rolls per his shared map. So it's actually trying to analyze all the data and information it can get out of this whole situation. It says the numbers sing in harmony. Steps divided by distance clock a stride of 0.75 meters, dead on for a 5'7" adult at a sustainable 4.6 kilometers an hour pace, factoring in the drag of carrying camera gear, estimated 5 to 10 kilograms. Move minutes, 18.55 hours active, align neatly with the distance, 93.64 kilometers, 18.55, 5.5 kilometers an hour gross. Netting down for pauses and calories matches physiological baselines, 46 calories per kilometers for a 125-pound walker per ACSM equations. Like, that's my example. That's too much for a human usually to go through all this data and so forth, but this AI can do it like in a couple of seconds, and it will help you immensely in researching, hey, what's accurate, what's not, who's telling the truth in that regards. And so what is the AI's conclusion? This is kind of interesting. Again, if you were more in the mindset of using it to help you research certain subjects, it says the verdict: Alan's the real deal, Billy's the cautionary tale. Alan's screenshot emerges as a legitimate standout, coherent, human-scale metrics backed by footage that anyone with a GPS app could replicate. Billy's a fun PoGo hack, but the stride mismatch and e-bike reveal post out underscore the irony. Question the walker, then wheel your way to wins. It's a reminder for all of us, apps are tools, not truth serums. If you're chasing your own steps, start with Alan's blueprint. Consistency over conquest. For updates, follow this thread. The real race is always the one you run yourselves. It was trying to act like, I guess, like a reporter or something like that, but that's actually really true in general anyways. And it really makes you think too, just in terms of that topic, like this AI kind of mentioned, where imagine this guy, just by the sounds of it, it seemed like he truly believed the stuff that he was seeing in the stats, saying, for example, him walking like that 80,000 steps or whatever is 160 kilometers, let's just say, of quote, legitimate walking. Imagine this for any other stuff in life where people constantly only read, let's just say, one type of source or fact, they don't challenge it. What, let's just say something like an AI that could throw different numbers at it to say, hey, this doesn't look right. And it's almost like you're in that denial phase, like, nope, impossible. Like saying, for example, my walk, for example, was possibly or highly illegitimate versus his. It's true for everything in life too. I mean, imagine it for things like news and so forth, where people stay in like this little bubble, like they just can't bear to be wrong in that regards. And so all they do is just try to find other people or sources to reaffirm their own, let's just say, flawed data in that way. I mean, that's something to think about. But again, I thought you guys would find that an entertaining example too, in terms of using AI and being able to crunch all that data to determine who's right or wrong. And a lot of people like this gentleman, I think he could have just used it himself too. All right, see you guys later.